the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting. Today is February 18, 2026, and I'm calling this meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. And I ask staff to proceed with the roll call, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair Eshelbeck,
Here.
Vice Chair Marty Potla.
Yes.
Commissioner Ganga,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Wolf.
Sure.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. That takes us to our first agenda item tonight, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from January 29, and we have received the draft minutes with the package. So I'm asking for their feedback, corrections, amendments, or a motion to approve those.
I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Anybody seconds that motion? Second. That's the motion. We have a second. Can we ask for a vote on the motion, please?
Approval of the January 29th, 20 minutes. How do you vote, Chair Eshelbeck?
Yes.
Vice Chair Marty Potla,
Yes.
Commissioner Ganga,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. For that takes us to postponements. Are there any postponements from previous meetings?
No.
Okay, wonderful. I know we are not talking about written communications, but at least I want to acknowledge written communications that we have received on the public website as of this evening. Next item on the agenda is oral communications. This part of the meeting is reserved for any topics or any persons wishing to speak on a topic that's not on the agenda tonight. We are limiting those to 3 minutes per speaker. If there is anybody waiting for speaking tonight on a topic not on the agenda, either online or in person here, please speak up now.
We have no speakers, Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. So no speakers tonight. I'm closing the public comment period for this meeting tonight, for this agenda tonight. That takes us to our old business, which is item number 2 on the agenda. And we are discussing the Cupertino Active Transportation Plan. And I think Matt Schroeder is going to walk us through kind of the update from, I guess, from the previous.
Yes, so I'm happy to go through the presentation for commissioners again, but it will be the same as what was presented to you last time. So maybe for the purpose of this meeting, we could just have a more focused discussion on the points that you want to bring up. We did go to the Planning Commission last week to present the same information to them and receive comments from the planning. And then we will be going to council tomorrow night to once again present the same information. And the comments that we heard from planning, as well as the comments that we'll gather here tonight, will be included in a desk item and presented to the city council.
Okay, yeah, I think it makes sense to not repeat the presentation from last time. I think that makes perfect sense. So I'm just wondering, maybe let's just go through the commissioners here quickly and see if there's any clarifying questions or any comments on the agenda item that we are talking about here.
I would like to request if we can see the planning commission minutes or the notes from planning commission. So that way we can see what they are recommended as well.
So the planning commission minutes are still in draft form. They haven't been finalized yet or published on the website. I have my written notes from what we heard, so it may not be verbatim, but you can get kind of the gist of what occurred. The commission conducted a couple different straw polls to provide comments to staff and to the council. The first of which came from chair to have a straw poll to consider the ways in which public safety response times, so EMS response times can be incorporated into the project recommendations. There was one in favor and then no opposed or no abstentions, according to the notes here. And then one of the commissioners, Commissioner Lindstog, conducted a non-binding straw poll to rescore the criteria to reduce the weight of the safety scoring for routes to school, as well as on cost effectiveness, and increase the weighting for the Vision Zero High Injury Network, and also develop new metrics for documented KSIs in hopes of addressing what she says the accident on Foothill Boulevard. So that was 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions. The chair also conducted a non-binding straw poll supporting incorporating emergency response times into the programmatic recommendations. So there was 3 in favor of this, 2 opposed, and no abstentions. Commissioner Fung conducted a non-binding straw poll to separate parks from the access criteria, as well as proximity to schools. So having those be their own standalone categories. There was 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and 0 abstentions. And then Commissioner Rao conducted a non-binding straw poll, stating that they discard the materials that were proposed and start over. There was 1 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 abstentions.
Very helpful. Thank you. That's very good.
Just one question. What's the difference between this straw poll and so there's no motions?
Correct. I'm not really sure on the bureaucratic technicalities of that.
Non-binding.
It's less binding.
Just the fact that
Yeah, it's not a formal action for the commission as a whole. It doesn't represent the voice of the commission, but it just gives a
It's a
sense
tone.
of where commissioners stand on certain issues. Yeah. That's,
So is there a reason you wouldn't do a motion? Is it just
That they felt that they wanted to provide their input individually rather than collectively trying to establish a motion as a group. So this way, there was kind of some discrepancies with each of their comments, so they just wanted to make sure that those were voiced and on the record.
All right. Any other clarifying questions, comments from commissioners?
Yeah. I have a couple clarifying questions. One is, I noticed, or at least I think the intersection, as far as the project prioritization goes, the intersection of Wolf and 280 was in the first prioritization, then I think it was removed.
Yeah, so that was an oversight. So that's a project that was incorporated, but has been addressed, right? Like that project has been built. So that project should never have been included as a recommendation.
or it is going to be.
And then these technology transportation corridors, are they meant to supplement traditional bike pedestrian infrastructure? Is that the intent, or is the intent for it to replace bike ped infrastructure?
It's just another project type. Council provided direction that technology be prioritized. So these technology corridors, you can think of them as standalone projects that are ranked equally in the plan, alongside bike and ped projects.
Yeah. As far as, I think this will be a clarifying question, is when you score, are we looking at the VTA measure B funding requirements? Are those taken into consideration? As far as, because do they have requirements? You know, does the county VTA have requirements for if they're gonna fund a project in Cupertino? Are we looking at certain requirements, and what are those requirements?
Yeah, the consultant looked at those, one of those being proximity to transit as part of like the scoring. So Alta has stated that based on their review of what the Measure B requirements would be, that the projects that are undergoing this type of scoring would be eligible.
Oh, and then Was the Bamley and Stevens Creek intersection included this last round and it wasn't in the first round of the project? or-
Correct. That was added based on the comments that we heard
But that is,
with Tory and Town Center.
and Yans and I-280 are in the project list twice. What's the reason for that?
Northbound or westbound on ramp and eastbound on ramp.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Anything else?
One more clarifying question. When we look at the parking removal criteria, does it apply to the entire project and regardless of of the length of the project?
Correct.
All right. Final opportunity for any clarifying questions or comments. If not, I'm asking if there's any public speakers on this topic.
Yes, we have one speaker in person and one speaker remote. Our first speaker is Evan Lejuson.
Excellent. Evan, go ahead, please. 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Evan. So I went online and I downloaded the draft prioritization results, and something seemed odd about the criteria for scoring to me. So actually, just during this conversation, I noticed that the safety for number 22 for technology is scored above 30, which it looked like on the website 30 was the maximum. So not sure what's going on with that. But the other thing I noticed is I went to the Vision Zero dashboard on the website and selected pedestrian fatality. And what I saw there that the intersections or the places where there were fatalities were ranked pretty low on the draft proposal. So for example, Foothills and Rancho Ventura had a fatality. I couldn't find that on here. I found an intersection that was close and it's ranked 116. So that's pretty low on the list. There's also Bollinger and Miller Avenue that had some fatalities, or at least one, and that's ranked 173. So both of those are pretty low, and there are 5 fatalities listed on the Vision Zero dashboard for pedestrians. So I didn't check all of them, but it looked like places where people have been killed were ranked pretty low, even though that's selected as critical places to maybe improve, since people have been in accidents, people have died. So that's my comment. It looked like maybe there's something that's not quite right with the scoring criteria that should be looked into.
Thank you for David.
Okay, our next speaker is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, Bike Ped Commission and staff. I agree with the previous speaker. The matrix, the scoring matrix, I think needs to be reassessed. And before you go any further, it needs to have an increased emphasis on areas where injuries and deaths and collisions occurred. It seems to be higher priority for safe routes to school. Anything along that gets max points. And it doesn't matter whether it's one section or the entire section that gets the points. And safe routes to school means that's the safest route to school. So it seems contradictory. I think we should focus on where people actually have had deaths and injuries and collisions. Also, I think it needs to emphasize technology more, because we can't afford to pay for more deputies. And there are a lot of technology tools that we could use as a city that would save us money and reduce fatalities at critical intersections. And I'm referring to red light. The number one intersection is Deanza Boulevard and Homestead. And it's in the matrix, it's ranked number 66, but it's the number one intersection with problems in the Vision Zero plan. So Also, let's see, the loss of parking, there's no mention, and the public was not told that if they pick these or say they like a plan, that it's potentially could take all the parking on a street. And the report says that there could be that the council would be able to decide after 30% design. Well, in the past, after a design has already started, there's no going back. It's basically a done deal. And there are a lot of these identified projects that anybody, a 2-year-old, could figure out that the whole street would lose its parking. So, and I also think that separated bike lanes, you need to really restrict them to not impact the 2-lane streets as much. The big multi-lane, fast-going areas, it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Any more public speakers?
We have no remaining public speakers.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm opening up this topic for commission discussion amongst commission. And I wanted to maybe start saying, I think it is important that we look at this plan as a guidepost for council. And I think we should primarily focus on talking about the bigger topics that we need to fix and adjust on the plan. I think it would be, we're going to be spending hours and hours here if we go into individual projects and drill down into individual scoring. Why is this or that way? That I think that probably would be very effective. But I think we should be very well, like some of the feedback we just heard, some of the feedback on the written communications really tells us that there are some areas that we need to tweak, we need to adjust, scoring being one of them, some other areas that we discussed. So I just wanted to put this out front for everybody. Hopefully everybody is in alignment and opening up for discussion. I'm going this order this time.
Okay. I'll start. I got a bunch of feedback regarding various areas. So I'm going to start with the technology-based counts. In the memorandum, there is a comment about making sure that we incorporate technology into the project to make sure that we increase the usage of biking and walking in Cupertino as opposed to prior to the construction being made, which makes sense. What I wanted to make sure we incorporate is to make sure that we just don't do that based on a single project. Because if we have, like, for example, 2 islands and the sea in the middle, you put one pillar on the one side and another pillar on the other side and no table for the bridge, you don't have a network, right? You have 2 construction sites and nobody can go from one island to the other. It's not a network. And so the problem that I can see here is that if we take a project-based approach to measuring the utilization, is that we will run into issues and just focusing on the narrow things. If you look at the projects that are successful, like McLennan, for example, Road, they're successful because it's a network. It goes from the Enza College to the Enza Boulevard and to the right. The Regna Creek Trail goes from the Creekside Park to Wilson Park to the library and City Hall, right? So it's a nice network because it connects things. And I think that if we start measuring the impact of a project without taking into account the broader aspects of the network, I think we not, like if we start, for example, if it's the first project of completing a network, you'll be like, oh, but this project is not successful, but the other pieces of the network have to come together so that we actually see some improvements. So I just wanted to make sure that when we measure the success through technology of a project, and I want to do that, I want to see how successful we are with our projects, that we don't have a too narrow an approach to measuring kind of the KPIs that we set ourselves. So that's one. The other thing I wanted to comment on the parking and the lane removals. As I mentioned in the question, the criteria regarding removal of parking does not take into account the length of the project. So if a project has an impact on 2 miles, for example, and it removes 2 parking spaces over these 2 miles, then that's going to be a 0, right? But if we have very small projects that impacts, I don't know, a crossing or very little of the street, then you would have the full points because you don't remove parking. So it's kind of, let's say, unnatural to feel, okay, if we have this huge project that can be transformative for a long distance, and we remove just 2 parking slots, it removes the entire scoring criteria. So maybe one thing to do is to adjust that by having the number of parking slots removed divided by the length of the project, and it's something to think about. What also is very troubling is the nature of parking at a certain project. I took, for example, Mariani Avenue to Bentley Drive, which is, by the way, is marked as a bike lane. Did not mention whether it was a protected bike lane anymore or just a buffer bike lane, just a bike lane. So, but here's the funny thing: when you look around, it's not residential homes; it's just Apple, and it's literally surrounded by Apple parking. And if we tell Apple, look, guys, we're going to remove parking, they'll be like, sure, most likely, go ahead, we don't care. If it's in a residential area where people live, I think that's when people would be like, well, I'd rather have my parking, which is my parking, the city's parking. But my point is that the nature of the surrounding buildings also makes a big difference between the opposition you might see in a project, right? So, yeah, and then some of the things were a little bit surprising for me when I looked at some of the projects. One of them is Homestead to Vickman, where I didn't understand why there was no parking at all, and yet it didn't get the full points already. So some of the things I did not understand. I just don't want to go into every individual project, as the chair mentioned. So yeah, something to think about is that the nature of the project, how long is the actual project impacting, like how much impact has it, and also not just in terms of length, but also who is in the surrounding. And in my opinion, I think it's something that we can do and we should do on a project by project base. If you do this on an aggregated level for all the projects, it's very hard to put that into this kind of thing. The previous speaker mentioned, oh, we should not, we should have more like emphasis on the parking. But the problem is that, and she mentioned after 30% of the design were done, and that is not true, because for the Lawson Middle School project, there were 2 options that were offered to the Bike Ped Commission and to Council. One of them was to remove parking, and the other one was to keep parking. And these options were put together, put in front of the Commission and of the Council, and it was not a decision of 30%, that's a done deal. No, it was not, and this project proves it. So maybe one thing to do is, I would also very much agree, however, with the previous speaker on the phone, as well as with the person present here, to say that we have a big discrepancy between the high engineering network and the prioritization of the projects. And that's very troubling, because the Vision Zero plan is literally, the ATP was supposed to be the kind of the how we implement things in order to make this Vision Zero a reality. And it's completely disconnected right now. So it's very troubling, and I think we need to work on that. So maybe one idea that I would like to share is maybe sharing the points between the Safe Routes to School points and sharing them with the high engineering network, meaning that if you are on the high engineering network defined as in the Vision Zero plan, you would get more points, and if not, you wouldn't get them. Or even, as I said, parking is not a relevant criteria. It's a criteria that's relevant on a project by project base, and we could remove this criteria and take it and put it on the high engineering, and instead have the high engineering network criteria being set here. One other thing, in terms of the neighborhood bike routes. So I took the freedom, because you mentioned on the document that the design information, like what guides your thinking as to which projects to implement or not, is the information bulletin 94. design information bulletin 94, complete streets, contextual design. And you say it's adaptable, but that's essentially what you're taking more from. So I looked at the class 3 neighborhood bike routes, the definition and when they are good fits. And what this document says, it says for rural main streets, suburban area and urban area place types, which I think is valid for Cupertino. The main purpose of shared lane class 3 bike routes is to bridge a short gap between class 1, class 2, or class 4 bikeways for the sake of network connectivity. Again, this idea of network is important, which I appreciate. But the problem that I have is that the vast majority of the projects that were submitted are not connected to any of this. Okay, so if I look at, for example, the Kenfu to Joliman project, it stops in the middle of nowhere. It's like a bike route, and then poof, the street continues, but you know, there is nothing. It doesn't connect anything to anything. It's just one street and then to Joliman Park, but it doesn't say, it doesn't connect class 1, class 2, or class 4 bikeways, as opposed to what the document says it should. The thing also with the community engagement, I think was great. I had a lot of outreach and stuff. But on the ATP project website, there's that these bike routes have like one or two lights. And I don't think I've ever seen and I've attended quite a few of the things that you organized. And I don't think I've ever heard, participants saying that they absolutely wanted a route, neighborhood bike route as a project. So again, if you look at the projects here, it's the purple, and there is a lot of purple. And if you look at the connectivity, it doesn't always connect to this. So my point here is that we have 22 of the 38, if I'm correct, 22 of the 38 cycling projects are actually these neighborhood routes. We're not really solving a problem as per the definition of what the class 3 bike route should be. And if the community is not really screaming for it, then my question would be, what is it for then? Because if we have I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the city, we have things that are again, not fixing a problem, not something that the community asked for, and it's going to be expensive, right? We're going to have the permitting associated with this project, where the bidding process, where the contract, it costs also staff time. My opinion would be to reduce the number of projects so that we have a little bit more clarity. We don't need to have 200 projects. Maybe these neighborhood routes should be reduced so that we focus on the things that matter, which are actually improving the safety of the pedestrians and cyclists in the city. One thing to think about, if we really want to move people onto bikes by making them avoid big arteries and use neighborhood routes, I'd rather you guys go to Apple and ask them to put some weighting criteria in the way they route people when they say I'm on a bike, then ask Apple to reroute them to neighborhood routes, maybe. But that would be much more effective than having just signs around. Yes. So just to make it brief, the thing that I suggest are either to remove the complete the parking, or having at least shared safe routes to school points with the high injury network. I think that would be very important, and simply also cut the number of projects for the one that we matter.
Great, thank you. Philando?
Yeah, so I would like to provide some feedback. I think this is along the lines of what I gave as feedback in the last meeting as well. One is we will never be able to get it right. Like, you have 200 projects. If you move a criteria one way or the other, some other projects will pop up, and you are just going to do your whack-a-mole, right? It's not going to help solve the problem. It's a good guideline for what projects should be, how the project should be prioritized and whatnot. But as ATP, I think cities should have a vision and prioritize programs or corridors or neighborhoods where you wanted to take up the safety, because it's like a 10-year plan, and then maybe first 5 years would be more important. So where you pick up zones, like, in the city, you can pick up saying that the priority safety corridor, right, which is identified in Division 0. Take that and then say that, like, out of that, we are going to focus on the city center area, which covers the major artery like Stevens Creek Boulevard and Dianza, and then the neighborhood city center, which has the commercial access. It's a good economic zone. So pick that zone and then say that this is the area where we are going to improve the pedestrian safety, we are going to improve the intersection safety, and we are going to improve bicycle safety. And that would be the focus. And the city council or the elected officials weigh in on that. Similarly, you can pick up a different one, like a school zone, right? That could be another zone. And then we can pick up an area which is like a tri-school area, or like the Cupertino High School the area, right? So that's another way of picking up, and then making sure that projects around that, access to that schools, fix the issues. And then, at the same time, you're addressing Vision Zero also kind of identifies similar model, but then we clearly align with Vision Zero, but at the same time provide what focus area. City can never be able to go and deploy the resources on every one of these projects. So pick these zones and then start to work on these zones, and opportunistically pick up projects from these lists to implement when you are able to address the safety. That's one thing. And also, when the zones are picked up and the budget is limited, this will have opportunities to do pick build programs to improve the safety on these zones much quicker than waiting for 5 years before you can get these projects to make any sense, right? So that's another thing that we should look at. This is my, I think this is the feedback I gave last time. Some of the cities have done this. They prioritize corridors, or they prioritize zones. They prioritize programs. So that's a clear idea. I mean, you pick up like 3 or 5 areas where the city will be focusing projects for the next 5 years, next 10 years, like this. So beyond 5 years, you can call that as a long-term focus. On the other areas, like 5 years, you can say 5-year focus. That way gives a clear idea on what projects to pick up for the city council in future. That's one thing. The second one is on the guidelines. I think you have, I think Someone has provided the guidelines on, where you have to use the class 2, class 3, class 4 bike lanes. But then what we do is, like, we pick up projects and then go and try to fit projects. Like, for example, you say that you go into a residential neighborhood and say you want to do a class 4 bike lane, right? Which is the one with concrete barriers. I think we already know, we have heard feedback from the community on what happened when you try to do it in an area which is not suitable for that. And ASHTO and some of these national safety guidelines clearly say where you wanted to apply different projects. And in some cases, cities pick up those guidelines and then customize it for what's applicable for our city, what makes sense for us. It's a smaller city. We have, pass-through traffic going through our city and things like that. So accordingly, you wanted to, city should give a guideline as part of the transportation plan. It could be an appendix, or it could be in one of the chapters that clearly identifies this is the guideline for our city and this is how we're going to follow. So that way, you are not going to try to force fit certain projects that are not suitable for certain areas. Like example, like for class 4 or even class 2, class 3, there's like clear guidelines provided with metrics. And I think we should be following that in order to go with these projects. The third one I said is the Vision Zero alignment. I think that should be a separate chapter in order to show how you are aligning with Vision Zero, because we wanted to really implement what was been identified in Vision Zero, and these are the high injury corridors. And there are also programs and toolkits that have been provided. And so we should, it's not about prioritizing. We spend a lot of time on prioritizing, scoring, and things like that. But instead, we need to see how you are aligning with Vision Zero and how ATP is helping, getting to the Vision Zero the next 10 years. So that's basically what we should be doing. And I think there's enough information there in the toolkit that the staff knows about it. So we should really have a chapter that aligns ATP with what's shown in the Vision Zero. I think these are the 3 key items that I wanted to point out for us.
Thank you, Nando. Thank you.
This is my turn, that it's coming this way, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay.
Skip myself.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of comments. So one, the scoring mechanism, right? So did we use some standard rubric in terms of, what's used everywhere, or did we come up with something that, suited for Cupertino?
We came up with something that's suited for Cupertino by adding the balance criteria in there that's consistent with the goals. I believe Mountain View had something fairly similar. But the rest of the scoring criteria pretty much resembles what the 2016 criteria were.
So I'm just trying to see, how two speakers spoke about, the fatalities, junctions were, ranked low. So what was the scoring mechanism used that did help that case, right?
Mhm.
Because I would have thought, those things, would have bubbled up, right? So that's, general observation, right? So second, no matter what criteria we use, somebody is not going to like, what came out of the outcome of that, right? So because projects fall where they fall because of the scoring criteria that we use. So on in terms of picking and choosing, I think I've been consistent with my comments, even in the past. I believe there are a lot of small improvements we can make that gets bang for the buck, right? And I'll take McLaren Road because I live and breathe that every day because I live on that street, right? So Commissioner Marcy said it's a highly successful project. I kind of don't necessarily agree with that because I see all the problems every day because I live there, right? So and people that live on that street complain, right? And people that use that street complain. They don't live there, but they use it, right? So, and I see even last weekend when I was biking, I see two bikers in front of me. One of them in the bike lane, one of them in the car lane. They are riding in parallel, right? And it just it just creates such a mess, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call that a successful project, but there are a lot of small improvements that's done, that paying off big. If you ask people that live on that street, they really thank you, David, for particularly for taking steps to do those smaller improvements. Okay, so thank you for that, right? So I believe there are a lot of things that we can do with limited budget to improve the safety in the city without embarking on massive let's create a concrete barrier type of a project. That's just my high level observation and feedback, right? So I think concrete barriers have a place, but I don't think it's where streets are narrow and we create a more problem by dividing it further. And so I live and breathe that area. So that's that. I think the Tory Avenue project. I think that deserves because Cupertino Library is one of the highest used libraries, right? And there's a lot of people that come and go, and we need to improve the safety there, especially kids, right? So when it comes to kids, we thought of super careful because it's kids at the end of the day. So I'm happy to see that project in the list. Yeah, so I think that's
Thank you, Nando. Thank you.
Cool. So I started, well, the action item says review and provide feedback on Priority's project list for the active Cupertino active transportation plan. So that's what I focused on. And though I'm not going to drill down to, but I did look at the specific scoring and how that I asked myself, does this make sense? And what I did is I just copied it over, pasted everything into an Excel spreadsheet, started sorting it via various categories. And then I decided, well, I'm going to focus on, the intersections, the pedestrian safety, because that's something that I think is important. I think this commission has expressed, sort of a, uniformly that they're interested in increasing pedestrian safety. So that's where I sorted everything and I compared it to what was in Vision Zero. So Vision Zero, it's got two tables for the high injury corridors. There's like, I don't know, 15, and then there's the high injury intersections. So I focused on the high injury intersections. And what I came up with was, I was a little shocked, because I think I'd have to come out and say something's wrong with the scoring. Because the way we're scoring these projects, with our scoring criteria results in very strange outcome in the tables. And I just go down the list. So the intersection that's near and dear to me is Stevens Creek and Deanza. I've walked it many times, crossed it many times. It's pretty dangerous, but it's ATP rank of 56. And then there's a little intersection behind my house on a neighborhood network, Terry and Rodriguez, that is about, scores actually better than that. And there's no traffic, it's nothing. And that whole neighborhood network is nothing. I ride it all the time. It doesn't even, it's ranked number 8, by the way. It's some little neighborhood rank. So I think there's something wrong here. And you go down the list, you've got Deanza and Homestead. Number 1 on the high network intersection network, 65. So some of them work out. Cupertino Road and Stevens Creek Boulevard, the rank for the in Vision Zero is 3 and it's 12 for ATP. But there's many that just don't make any sense whatsoever. And then you look at what's not included that's in the original Vision Zero plan. Out of the top 20 intersections, 9 of them are not included at all, not even in the program. And out of the top, there's 48. I think I got 22 that were not even in the program. So you start looking at this and thinking there is something drastically wrong here. It just makes no sense. And I could never go along with this type of I have some ideas. I started looking at the scoring. So I went in and tried to figure out why are the scores so bad for some of these very important intersections. They're really truly dangerous, you know. And the thing I came up with is that I think try to find my talking. I think the scoring for it doesn't place enough weight on the safety of intersections, and you may be able to say the same thing about the corridors, but I didn't look that close. If it's on the Vision Zero plan, it doesn't place enough weight on safety. I think that's one thing. I recommend pushing that number from 20 to 30. The other thing is cost effectiveness can skew things because since I've been on the commission, what happens a lot of times is you got these big programs, you're $2 or $3 million or $4 million, and then you find out that 80% can be funded by outside money. So that should be considered, because just having, I would recommend possibly taking it out. This is something that council should decide on. This project's too expensive, we're gonna have to go on to something else. But it shouldn't be in the scoring criteria, because the score means nothing as far as safety goes. How can cost influence safety? I don't think it should. And even when it comes down to balance, you could say that, how does parking influence it? You have to look at the program. Maybe the council doesn't want to remove parking, but don't put it in the scoring. So you have safety, balance, and cost that I think skew this whole thing, so you get the weirdest results. Some work out, but a lot of them don't. And it's just, if this is how we're going to work, we've got some problems with this document. I just can't imagine going forward with it. I do want to say that I heard something about Foothill Boulevard, and I did look at that because there was a serious injury there, and that should be included. And because right now, when you look at the sidewalk segments that are placed over there, they're like 126, 148, 166, 184. So those segments, they're very poorly ranked, considering you had somebody die. I think one person, I can't remember how many died.
Little girl and 3 strangers.
And the other thing is I look at, even when you go through the documents and the scoring of the intersections, I don't believe address phase two public concerns regarding safety at intersections, particularly at commute hours, which is what they express. The intersections most frequently mentioned are those along Stevens Creek Boulevard, Bollinger, Prospect, Stelling, Deanza, and Blaney. And I think there's a lot of intersections along those corridors that are not addressed or poorly ranked. And you have to remember that if we're gonna, this document's gonna be in place for 10 years, that places it probably 2036. If I look at those projects and we go by the prioritization, you're never gonna get the vision zero. And I always keep in mind that 72% of all the KSIs are in just 7 corridors. So my recommendation would be we need to look at reducing that, if you're safe route to school, some of these corridors, they're safe already. You don't need to give them 20 points to, that's just way too many. You're pushing up projects that don't need to be considered. Like I just keep on thinking about that one right behind my house. I wouldn't do a thing. I've ridden that I've lived there for 40 years. I've probably ridden that 500 times. It's not dangerous. Stevens Creek and Deanza's dangerous, that intersection. Increase the maximum safety points to 30 from 20 for the anything, the corridors and the intersections on the high injury network. And then I would actually, for Foothill Boulevard, I would put that on the high injury network and put 30 points out there for that. But that's, if I were gonna make a straw poll, I would put this out. If we need to really rethink this scoring and how, because in the end, it's all about the project list. And if we go with this, it's, it just doesn't make, some of it makes sense, some of it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks, everybody.
Chair, can I say one or
Yes, absolutely.
so thank you, everybody, for those comments. And I just, a few things, with respect to the weightings and the scorings, just to provide some context. Safety, of course, is very important, obviously. That said, it's not a safety plan, it's an active transportation plan. And the purpose, we're not trying to recreate the Vision Zero plan. We have that already. So what the purpose of this plan is to encourage people to walk and bike, identifying improvements that can be made to make the trips, the short trips that are currently being made by automobile, appealing, easier for people to use active transportation to walk and bike. So the intent is not to just look at the locations where we have had injury fatalities and make improvements there, because ultimately that is not necessarily going to advance the goals of the active transportation plan. It's a factor, and it's an important factor, and we recognize that. But so are the other factors that we've included that we've heard. Cost effectiveness, which we've been asked to include by the city council. Balance. These are other things, access to schools that we've heard are important and that we need to consider in order to encourage people to get out of their cars and to walk and bike. So, if the commission's direction is to recreate the Vision Zero plan, we can take that recommendation forward, but that's not the intent of the plan. Again, safety is an important consideration. It's not the only one. And the next point I want to make is that, keep in mind as we get into this project is higher than that project, and why is this way down here? And staff, the commissions, the council at any time have the discretion to pick a project from this list, regardless of where it lands, and advance it for consideration for funding in the CIP. We've done that with the PED plan. We've done that with bike plan. We will do it with this plan. A project at 100 on the list might make sense to do tomorrow because there's an opportunity to incorporate that work with something else that's happening. there is no mandate to go line by line down the list. And if a project is 100, we're never going to get to it. Or if it's number one, we're going to do it tomorrow. This is a guide where projects would rank relative to the certain criteria that we've set. But it's not set in stone that this is the order in which we're going to do projects. So as we get into the minutia and we consider certain things, I kind of want to put that out there for context.
Thank you, David. And I had some comments as well. I wanted to share some of my observations as well. So I actually think it's impossible to create a plan that satisfies every scoring, every individual scoring opportunity, every project ranks in perfectly. It's impossible. Unless we kind of randomly rank them based on both. But I do think the feedback that we received, and I generally actually I'm quite supportive of the plan. I think it's actually quite a good plan. It's not perfect yet. I think there's some tweaking that we can do to make it perfect. But I think it's a good foundation, it's a good core. What I think we clearly heard from multiple sources, including this discussion here, the scoring seemed a little bit off. And I think when you drill down into what caused it to be off, it sounds like the safe routes to school is overscored vis-a-vis some of the high network injury kind of issues there that we've been talking about. And I think to me, that's actually a global, relatively easy fix to address that. Right now, the collision history is 20 points, which is exactly the same as the safe routes to school. It's also 20 points. To me, that's probably where the issues are coming from. If you think about it, if we reduce, let's say, as a one scenario, as one possible path forward, we could easily say we're going to reduce the safe routes to scoring impact from 20 to 10 or to 5 or whatever. That immediately takes it down to half of the value that it has today. And therefore, by definition, some of the collision history issues rise up in priority and rise up in scoring there. That's a relatively easy fix to do. It can be globally applied to all projects. Again, I'm not trying to pick a project. I think it would be very futile here to pick individual projects and score based on that. But I think a more systemic approach that we can take here to take down the school proximity to 10 or even 5 points, if that is what's needed there to create the balance that I think is missing today. So that's one suggestion that I wanted to offer here as a way to kind of address the scoring. And I agree, by the way, I think the scoring with some of the high network injury probably should be a little bit balanced. I'm not thinking it should be the only criterion, it should be the exclusive way of driving the priority, but I think bringing it a little bit more in balance probably will help. The second one is, I do agree to keep on the loss of lane reduction and parking removal. I think it's an important criteria on the plan. I think it is, we've heard it over and over and over on prior projects in the past. So I think it would be a real miss to not keep it in there. I think this is important, and I think it's about the right priority that's assigned to it. Lastly, I also believe cost is a factor that should be considered. I mean, I used the example last time. Two projects are equal based, and the cost one is free, and the other one is an expensive project. I know which one I would fund. So I would not make any changes there. I think there was some additional feedback that I heard from this discussion here about possibly clustering some projects. I think that could be done in the bike plan, or bike ped plan, or ATP plan, or could also be a strategic plan in the city that they take. So this year we can address here in those areas. And then again, I think the city council will probably pull projects together from the whole list. It doesn't matter if it's priority number 7 or number 17. As long as they are fitting within the area that they probably will pull together as part of a bigger project in an area that being addressed. So I like the idea of clustering projects into kind of units so that you can create this connectivity amongst different areas. And I think that could be accomplished either within the plan or even outside the plan. So I'm not saying it has to be part of the plan. It could be also outside of the plan. Honestly, Again, I think the priority, we should not get too focused on the number that's assigned, if this is number 7 or number 17. I think we should look at the big picture, and if we can address the scoring, the misscoring of some of the projects by changing kind of the safe routes to school priority, I think that would probably address the issue. I have one more final comment. I've seen this math with like, you're doing some correction at the end, the correction factor. I think this is a very confusing type of way of presenting the data. It's not very clear, and I think it probably causes some of the confusion. The reason is obvious why we're doing this is because the balance is currently only in the bicycle projects and it's not in the pedestrian project. So therefore, the total sum is 100 for bicycle projects, but it's only 80 for the pedestrian projects. And to correct for that, you have this correction factor, and I think that creates a lot of confusion, at least for me. Wouldn't it be, I think the end result is exactly the same, but wouldn't it be easier and simpler to essentially, instead of have the balance, the 20 points balance, have them positively, have them negative, essentially. So that essentially would make sure that every score is a maximum of 80, and then removal of parking, and you don't have this correction factor business that you're currently doing. You can eliminate all of that. And it would exactly the same outcome, but I think it would be a cleaner way of presenting the data and the results there. So all you would do is essentially, you would have a maximum score of 80 for each of the categories, for all the 4 matrices. And instead of having the balance a positive impact, having a negative impact from 80 downwards rather than from 80 upwards. That's I think would be exactly the same result, the same outcome, change anything in the scoring, but it would present it in a clean way. I don't know if I was very clear with my thoughts here, but
No, you were clear.
yeah, okay, great.
So Chair, if I may, so we're getting kind of towards the end of the ATP process. We're going to council tomorrow, as you all know. Following that, we're going to put together the final draft, which will be put for everybody's review and comment. So in the interest of just giving us focused direction, making sure that we understand, would it be possible to get motion or a straw poll on, it seems like what's causing 90% of the angst is the scoring, the weightings of what the commission as a body would recommend in terms of weightings for the various criteria, so that we can focus on that moving forward in terms of what we consider going to making.
I think it's reasonable. Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yep. I think we should probably offer a package of things, maybe 2 or 3 things that probably make sense for everybody. Again, I wouldn't make the list too long because I don't think there's gonna be 15 things to fix. I think if we fix 2 things, probably are almost there. But let's do a second round here.
One question to the commission. I understand the parking thing is a sensitive topic, but I want to come back to the example that I mentioned before, where the city knows when, for example, a street is surrounded by offices. And I'm just curious whether you'd be open to that, depending on the zoning type, which I think the city knows, the parking requirement moved for example, if the street is surrounded by offices as opposed to houses, where it would be a different one where we could remove the points, but at least for like a commercial use where there is ample parking, they remove that criteria here and just assign the 10 points. Is that something that?
I mean, I still think it's an important criteria that I think would be a miss to not include, even because you used the example before. There's multiple options very often that are being presented. So one option is a very destructive option. Another option is not. We don't know yet which one is going to be proposed or decided upon. Therefore, I think at the moment we have to kind of consider that as a factor in the equation, in my opinion. But I'm open again for other things. So
I'm just trying to think of the things that are going to be, because if we are doing a prioritization thing, if something is high in the list, we want to, implement it as quickly as possible, knowing that if it's high, we won't have like resistance, for example, from the neighbors, because there are no neighbors. So in that case, regarding parking. So I'm just trying to think, how can we make sure that the projects that are at the top are going to be easy to implement, and in that case, well, there's not going to be any resistance, so we can go ahead, and that's why they should get the point automatically. Surrounded by commercial offices or offices, then in that case, they would get the 10 points automatically. It's kind
But
of,
it's also in the case of businesses, sometimes they also don't want to lose parking as well.
yeah,
There's
that's
a-
what I'm saying, offices as opposed, because they have, I think, parking requirements as opposed to maybe commercial, like retail type of
Yeah.
thing, that's a different one. To be honest with you, I don't know if the city.
To me, honestly, this is not one I would probably at this point tackle. I think the feedback that we strongly received is around the overall scoring of safe routes to school vis-a-vis high network injury. So I think if we, in the spirit of what David also mentioned, let's focus on those things that we heard loud and clear from multiple sources and from everybody, almost including this commission, everybody, rather than let's pick an individual pet kind of thing there. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, so I think as I was saying about the clustering the project, or what I call it as a priority projects or priority corridors, or you can call it as zones, where you can pick projects around that to improve it. I think David was saying it's not about always safety, but then safety is an important criteria for encouraging people to really bike and walk. So you have to address that, without which, you can do whatever you want, but people are not going to use it, right? So that's the challenge. So I think this is where multiple cities have done it. I can point you to, city of Fremont was done ATP program, and then you can look at it. It's not that we need to go and create a separate document. We have an opportunity right now to fix it. And in spite of doing all the scoring, I'm for, changing the scoring, but maybe it's not going to satisfy the community. You're going to find other projects that are falling apart, and some other projects moving higher, right? So I think we need to come up with, maybe the staff can take a stab at it, and I'm sure, like, if you ask the consultant, they know about it because other cities have done it, and ask them to include a proposal on what zones that you want to prioritize. And safety corridor is one thing, the injury corridor is one thing, one example, but there could be others, right? So ask them to come up with a proposal, and then you can pick up projects, multiple projects around that. There'll be a lot of opportunities to pick up projects of different scoring into that criteria, because the city has decided to go and address that zone, right? Or to access. If you're saying that it is a connectivity, just putting list of projects is not going to help. You need to show that, okay, we are going to have a, corridor that encourages people to, bike to school or whatnot, right? So people bike to school if it is within 3 miles. This is given the state's, pedestrian plans, right? So, and similarly, if you want to encourage people to walk to commercial centers, then which means that it has to be within a mile, which encourages people to walk. So this is not what I'm saying. I think you can go and look at the state's pedestrian and bicycle plan, and they provide that number, a statistic, what makes a program successful. So that's something that we have to state that as a vision. What's the vision for this ATP in order to develop these zones or areas or projects? You can also have programs, by the way. That programs, when I said that if you want to encourage people to bike and walk, it's not necessarily always infrastructure development projects. It could also be programs that will encourage people, campaigns and things like to walk and bike. So that's another thing that could complement the infrastructure projects, and that could also be part of the program. So this is why I gave an example of city of Fremont to go take a look at it, and there are other cities as well have done similar things as part of the AT. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you. Thank you.
I was wondering, do we have to do this as part of the bike plan, or could we? Because I'm thinking I think the clustering, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense, but I think it's driven by factors that change over time. If you put this in the plan today, we lock ourselves for a 10-year kind of a master plan. Isn't it driven by, making an example here, Apple comes out and say, I'm gonna offer you, I don't know, at this point, $6 million to improve the area around this part of the city. And then city council would say, okay, well, let's see what would fall into that category. So to me, that clustering is more a function over time rather than a kind of a predetermined setting that we would put in the plan. But
It could also, it could also work against you because there are 10 projects in the cluster and you don't have the money to do them all. It may discourage doing 2 of them, which you might have the money for, which you would otherwise be able to do in the absence of considering it as part of. So it could work either way.
yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I think it's a great idea because you get economies of scale if you tackle an area. Maybe there is a redevelopment, there is a new housing project being built somewhere in that neighborhood. You may want to do also projects that are kind of all aligned and adjacent so they create connectivity there.
And as you mentioned before, that's a decision that could be done outside of the plan when we
That's
funding
what I-
requests for projects. That you want to do this, that, and that because it'll form a cohesive route.
I believe also that's something I fully agree with you in terms of clusters. I like the idea of clusters because as I mentioned also at the beginning, I think that's how we should measure the success of this walking and biking plan is like how many people are using it for this entire network, not just for this point or this project and this stuff.
Any others, feedback or comments? I mean, if
So, no, I have a couple of clarifications, right? So, thank you, David, for clarifying, the intent of, what we are trying to do here. I do have a question for you, right? So you said, the goal is to encourage walking and biking and stuff, cars, right? So that's right. So I just want to use an example, right? Like where I live, right? If I need to go to library or, if I need to go to Target or something, right? I walk, right? Because I have no need to get on the car. If I had to go to Safeway, right? The one, on Bollinger or the one, on Homestead, I'm not going to walk, right? So I'm going to get on the car. Right? So what should we do to get me not to use car? Right? So I'm just curious, right? Because if that's the intent, right? So are we trying to change people's behavior or because that's hard, right? So I'm going to decide based on the proximity to where I'm trying to get to. Where even was said that within a mile, people are likely to walk, right? If it's more than a mile, they want to get on the car. So that's just the reality. So I don't know. So is there anything that you could do to get me off the car to go to Safeway?
Go to Safeway.
Yeah.
I mean, improving the experience of the bike routes and the walking routes between McClellan and Safeway.
Yeah, let's ignore my example. Let's take people that are living in Monte Vista area, like closer to
In which area?
Monte Vista,
Okay.
right? More closer to Linda Vista Park and all that.
Yeah.
What is that we can do to get them to walk to these shops, right? Or bike. I can't think that there is anything that can be done to make them to walk or bike this area. They're going to get on the car and get because it's too far.
Well, for some people it will be, yeah, but we want to try to capture those people that, however many or few there are that do drive that might walk or bike if it were made just a little bit more appealing. And that's why we did this trip analysis with document that looked at so many people that are, these are the locations where the origins and destinations are between 1 and 3 miles that really all the people that are driving between point A and point B, some portion of them might get on their bike and ride if we do these
I think-
improvements between those 2 points.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to drive, my example, I don't know, the argument is, I think it's hard to change people.
It is very
So they do what they want, right? So our goal should be, to make it safer for people to operate within, what they want. Right? The bikers and walkers and, cars, we should make it, safer for everybody. That's the goal and intent, right? Not, change the behavior. If changing the behavior, is impossible at this old age. So,
I don't think anybody said we wanted to change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the stated goal of the ATP isn't to achieve some kind of mode shift target. It's really just to make walking and biking easier for those that want to choose that transportation mode.
is
So
that
it's
hard?
providing them with the network, it's providing them with the program and policy recommendations that are in the plan. And it's not about mode shift.
Okay, good. So I just want us to be on the same page in terms of, what is it we're trying to achieve, right? And I have a question to, Commissioner Wolf, right? So I know that you are passionate about, the Dianza and Stevens Creek Junction, right? So I'm curious, what is that, you would do to make it safer, right? I know it's a high traffic junction in both directions, but pedestrian, what is it, you can think of, like, say, you have infinite amount of money. What is it, you do to make it safer?
I don't think we're in the situation with the city has.
No, I'm just curious because I want to hear, because I see it, it's a pretty dangerous, not only for pedestrians, but even car crossing, because, nobody stops even after, that it turns red.
Yeah.
And pretty dangerous, like, head-on collisions, type of a situation. So I'm just curious, what is it,
You asking me?
Yeah.
And before you answer, from the commission here, how many of us have seen at least one accident where the police or the emergency services were here? Do you see one? Because I like at least once a year I see someone that needs
On that
emergency-
intersection.
on that intersection that needs emergency services. Like, way too much to my taste. So
Yeah. No, it's not only there. I see a lot of places in our street, like, on my own street, McClellan, I've seen so many accidents. I provided footage to the police officer because I have cameras. Right? They come to me wanting to see, footage. I've done that many times.
So I'm trying, I'll address Stevens Creek and Dianza.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it's, I mean, the biggest problem you have is, as a pedestrian, I mean, I do see red light running frequently. But
Red light running by the cops, right?
by the cops.
Yeah.
But what you do see is when you're in the crosswalk, either stepping out into the crosswalk or coming across, and there are people that just, at broad daylight, they just won't stop for you. You have to have people, if everybody obeyed the law, you wouldn't need all this infrastructure improvement. You have to get people to, stop before you turn right on that. You have to get people to stop for people that are in the pedestrian crosswalk that have, they have the right of way. I mean, you feel threatened and I live very close by and I talk to my neighbors, I ask them. They will tell me, many of my neighbors have told me, they don't want to cross Stevens Creek in Dianza. It's not safe. It's just so aggressive. And there was a former mayor that I won't name, just my wife and I and four other people already crossing Stevens Creek in Dianza a few weeks ago. And we were out into the crosswalk, maybe 10 feet, and he zooms across, takes a right turn across our pathway, and that did not make anybody feel safe at fairly high speed. Now, he probably thought he could do it without hitting anybody. But those behavioral changes have to be made. And those are two very aggressive streets.
Red light cameras, would that be like that?
You would have to have cameras that actually
So,
check at people for not stopping on a red before you turn right. And for ticketing people that, if you're in the crosswalk, then you can't be turning through that, if I cross that medium barrier and I'm in that section of crosswalk, you gotta stop there.
Bringing us back to the technology discussion. Heard earlier, so it's fine.
David probably knows some things you can do, bump outs and leading pedestrian intervals. You can do certain things that maybe make it less amenable to turning right. But I mean, I don't think that, it's our goal here to solve these problems.
No, I was wondering, like, something like, given what you described, seems like, no right on red, would help because, people are just, making a right on full speed, even though pedestrians are crossing, right? Because there are two dangers comes from two sources. Like one is, people that don't stop for red, right? So that's, the street traffic that are going. There's nothing we can do, to change their behavior. They're going to run the red light, they're going to run. And most likely the pedestrian is not going to be, there at that point because, you start little later, right? So, but then I see your point on, the right turns, right? Because, you made the cross and you are pretty close to, coming to the end point, and then somebody is, trying to, cut you through because, they think, they can make a right turn. So that, I can see. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think any other, or
I didn't wanna, I wanna address what David said. Earlier, when we were working on the Vision Zero, I remember, I think I asked you, I said, well, how do we get this implemented? And I think I was told it was the active transportation plan. Now you're telling us, okay, it's not the active transportation plan, because Vision Zero just has a series of tools. It doesn't really, and it tells you where the dangerous areas are and where the KSIs are. But I mean, I was told that the active transportation plan is how we get Vision Zero implemented. And so I'd like to, and the other thing I looked at was a while back, but I thought there was a listing of what projects were done. We had 3 tiers for the prior. I don't know if it was a bike ped plan, maybe both of them combined. But it seems to me if you're in tier 1, the first group, you're gonna have much better chance of getting that project done. And then if you're in tier 2, and especially if you're in tier 3, we don't have any tiers right now. But what concerned me is just 2 things. It's just how they're ranked, and the missing certain intersections aren't even in there. So how are we gonna improve the safety at those intersections? I mean, that are in the, listed as high injury intersections. So that would be my point there. So why rank it? If, maybe we should just list all the projects and decide how, we shouldn't even have any scoring. Maybe you just list all the projects and then you get the council decides what projects to pick. Because if we're saying the score isn't that important, then I would be concerned about that. And the other thing I would say is that there are other plans out there, the climate action plan. I don't know if you're aware that there are goals to reduce, to increase walking and biking. So I think it's I think biking by about 15% by 2030 and maybe 30% by 2035. Do you see that happening? I think you would need a very good plan and some really good infrastructure to do that. And then we have a 2018 VTA countywide plan, and they list the major corridors that are that they're concerned with for, cross city travel, cross county travel. And I don't know if those were included or considered, because there's some major corridors in there that I think Homestead is one of them. It's not really getting a lot of love in this project listing. And I think it's Homestead, Bollinger, Stevens Creek. So some of these plans are not getting some of these corridors are not getting any consideration or a great deal of consideration from Cupertino. And if it's in the VTA plan, how do those 2 things mesh? So I just like to point that out. There's other plans out there that talk about walking and biking, particularly biking. Are we doing anything with climate action plan? And there are a list of recommendations in the climate action plan, about 3 pages of things that we that should be in the active transportation plan, which, I haven't spent a lot of time on. But we could talk about this for days.
Sure, I agree. I think that's right. I mean, I think to me, the main message I heard tonight, and even the days before, I was also attending the planning commission meeting as I was listening in there as well. I think it's very clear that the scoring can improve. I mean, the rest to me, I think is actually all acceptable. I think the rest is all workable. I think the scoring, and again, I make the recommendation I made earlier that to reduce the safe routes to school scoring so that we can have a more indirectly higher priority. And I think I hear David, I think it's not, ATP is not equal to Action Zero plan. I think that's totally a fair comment. I think it's Action Zero is a subset of the ATP is a superset of everything. So it encompasses everything. But I think if we tune that scoring so that we get a little bit more mileage out of the high internet networks, I can see that as a working solution for the night.
Wouldn't we put a proposal on the table and, maybe, make a motion and, I'll vote on it.
Yeah. So I'm happy to
You can
propose.
start to, draft them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we.
So I'm making a draft and we can then edit this.
Mhm.
I move to approve the, ATP plan draft version 2, as presented tonight, with the following, modifications. First, to address, the scoring inequality, of, mean zero and high network injury. That's too fast. Move to approve the ATP draft version. Yeah, as presented today with the following set of modifications.
Question, there's no draft of war ATP still is yet to be developed, right?
Yeah, you're right. Why should we talk about this? So this is the,
Is it a proposal or what do you call it as?
Draft project prioritization list.
okay,
Well, it's more than that, though. It's,
do we call it?
we could just say the draft materials as presented.
Draft materials as presented, yeah, I think everybody knows what, because I think it's probably material anyway, what has been presented. So first modification would be to address the inequality of ranking of Cupertino Vision Zero and as well as high injury network.
So inequality, can I propose have imbalance between?
Sure. Inequality or imbalance.
Between the ranking of the Cupertino Vision Zero and the ATP.
Inequality or imbalance between?
Between, I would say the high injury network from Vision Zero and the proposed projects in the ATP.
That's fair.
No, it's fine.
Yep. And we could do this by, so the sentence is not complete yet.
High injury network. Of the Vision Zero plan.
High injury network corridors and intersections.
Hold on. Pedestrian. Okay. How's that?
Yep. Continue the sentence, high injury network by reducing the max score for school proximity to 10. For all, I guess for all matrices, for all all three matrices.
Or
Oh,
well, for all three matrices?
yeah. So it's bicycle network, it's pedestrian intersections, pedestrian sidewalk. So overall. So that essentially boosts the high insurance networks. And then the second point that I wanted to repeat what I mentioned earlier is I think we should eliminate that kind of score adjustment, the 1.25 adjustment and not there, by essentially making the balance in the bicycle a negative value.
But just something, the school proximity is in a different bucket, right? The safety.
It's in a different bucket, yeah.
It's an access.
Yes.
So the access, for example, for the bicycle network project prioritization matrix, access will go down to 20.
Yes,
And
correct.
safety will go.
Correct.
You say that again, Henry?
So the
The total max,
safety bucket. is-
total max score for access will go down to 20.
Yeah, safety will go up to 40 and access will go down to 20. Because we would.
Oh, I did not consider moving it up to, I did not. consider that.
Because school proximity, the safe for us to school criteria is in the access.
Right,
bucket, so we
right.
need to change that one.
That's correct, but the second point that you made, I did not consider that. I haven't thought about this, so I need to think about that. So yes, the first point that Irvin made is correct, that reduces essentially the max score for access to 20 from 30.
And if we want to put these 10 points into the. Hydro network, so we
Start over, what do we,
For all three matrices, comma, reducing the goal max score for access. For access. To 20,
20?
from 30 to 20. If you want to do.
Thanks, Matt.
Just let me just finish maybe the second part that I wanted to make and then come back to I will not forget.
Just one thing is the school proximity is defined as located along safe routes to school. May or may not be the same, but I'd rather precise and put.
Equal proximity meaning along the same.
Along-
Proximity is the criteria, that's the criteria, that's what it's called.
Yeah, but you can. Proximity to school, but not be in a safe routes to school. Route.
Right.
Like I can tell you at Eton, for example, there are like streets that are not.
Yeah.
They are close proximity,
Yeah.
but they are not
Yeah.
passing through to
Yeah.
feed the.
How would you modify?
I would just say, instead of saying, not for, exactly, for being located along a safe routes to school.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. And then the second point, make the balance in the bicycle, metrics a negative score, so meaning, it deducts points if lane reductions or parking removal is happening.
So when you're doubling the weight for the balance.
No, I'm just equalizing everything to the same number because the other ones are right now. The reason why we have this imbalance right now is because balance is only in the bicycle metrics, it's not in the other ones. That's why, and that's why we have to do this conversion business with the 1.25.
We do the conversion in the technology corridors as well.
Yeah, I mean, technology core is, I think it's only 4 projects ranked, so I don't think they will have any material impact. You can still do it for them if you prefer, so. Or you change the scoring point so that you get up to the same number percentage wise, keep the same percentage wise, but just adjust it so that the same total number, I think it's now we have a total of 70 now maximum in each of the categories. So I don't know if this has been clear. Is this clear what the intent here is?
We could also remove the modifier as a column and change the total to the adjusted score total. To clarify that normalization occurred, but then removing that. Value. Next to the other criteria, which might kind of clean up some of the confusion there.
I think what I suggested to me sounds pretty clear.
Okay.
You know, I can certainly explain this to for anybody.
Okay.
But the conversion,
Can you explain it again to me? Yeah.
the conversion business was difficult for me to get, to be honest.
The amount of work we need the consultant to do, because they have it all programmed on their end, where those values are in there. I just don't know the amount of work that's gonna be required for their GIS staff to make those edits.
Yeah,
So it could be a simple reworking or modification, or it could be something that could require.
they could change the modifier to 1.00 for all of them. If they really want to.
Can we,
I would just.
can we keep it general and say, just eliminate the modifier column and adjust as appropriate?
Yeah, I think
And then we'll figure
how
out
to
the best
address,
way to do it.
how to address it is to make the balance a negative value. That's the way, I think that's the core.
And the way we approach that scoring too is we wanted to reward projects with fewer trade-offs. So that's why they were given the additional points rather than saying, no, these are bad projects. We want to subtract points from them. So it's kind of a distinction in framing.
But it adds a lot of complexity and understanding the score.
It just adds an additional column.
I'm open for ideas and suggestions as well. I mean, I think this is something that when I looked through it, it stuck out in my eye as a sort of.
I would recommend going to 30 points under safety criteria with, under collision history, going from 20 to 30 points for those intersections in maybe the top 7 high injury corridors and the top 20 high injury intersections, so that they do get some preference, that you're sure that these dangerous corridors and the dangerous intersections are going to be addressed. They're not going to be pushed way down. But and I've looked at mainly the intersections, and I think there needs to be, I think knocking 10 points off of the safe routes to school thing is good, but I think you're gonna have to go add some safety to the high injury intersections, the high injury corridors.
The concern I have.
The high injury intersection and high injury corridors are telling us something. You know, in the sense, you know, if there are accidents happening there, that's an indication that something needs to be done there. Right? So we need to weigh that in. So treating it like, you know, yet another intersection.
So, sorry, you can either address it as part of the points here, or you could have that as a separate criteria. Maybe I was talking about clustering, but you can pick high injury network that's addressed in Vision Zero and say that, use that as an opportunity to address those things here. If you don't want to go after priority zones and things like that, which you said that it could change. But this is not going to change, it's already well documented.
Yes, yes. And there's already category here, so, I mean, maybe it sounds like upgrading to 30 from 20, maybe a way to address those issues.
I would agree with that.
It certainly brings down a lot, I mean, we essentially kind of turned it, flipped it, yeah, we flipped. So I'm sure there's gonna be some feedback coming. Now, safe routes to school, you know, I'm concerned about them at all. So I think there's some of that is gonna come there. I can go on this one either way. I'm very, very happy to see it.
So what are we changing?
I would increase maximum safety points to 30 from 20 for you want to say the top
For the high injury network,
to the high injury network.
Get the total goal max to 40.
so the total would be 40.
So that would apply to the corridors of concern and the priority intersection projects? Okay.
Well, this would apply to all the matrices, right?
Yeah, well, yes, but the projects that overlap with the corridors of concern, which are the top 7 corridors, and forget how many are the top intersections, but
There's a total of 48, but
yeah, but the ones that are in the top, however many that is.
top 10, top 20.
Yeah, I forget how it's classified.
I mean, I think certainly that in my opinion is a pretty radical shift, for safety. I think kind of addresses the feedback that we have received from public community as well as here in this community stuff. I feel this is a reasonable change. We should support.
So basically, we're bringing safe route
Favor routes
from 20 to 10,
correct,
wherein we're making high injury network from 20 to 30.
correct.
So we're just taking 10, shifting from.
Yep. Yep.
And then the
Meaning
mod,
the total overall max is gonna remain 8.
it's gonna remain the same, yeah.
It's not changed.
Okay, and now,
The only other thing I would add is, I would like to see the Foothold Boulevard be. I know it's not in the high injury network right now in Vision Zero, but because of those recent deaths, we should possibly add that to.
I agree
As an
with that as well.
additional high injury.
I agree.
Network.
That has been come up many times as well in comments, so. I don't know if it is somewhere spread throughout there in sub projects, I've seen something there. But it may not be as prominent, so maybe the scoring change will make it more visible, I don't know.
Well, that would put it, it would get to 30 points, because right now the sidewalks are very poorly ranked along Foothill Boulevard.
Mhm.
So this would be under the sidewalk criteria.
But this is a general scoring criteria. It'll be very hard for you to cherry.
Can't-
pick a
Yeah,
project.
no, we're not gonna do that.
Right.
No.
Yeah,
We should rely on whatever the scoring is here and also then look at it and.
yeah, we can't go pick where certain accidents have
No.
happened and throw those at the.
No, that we don't, yeah. I would agree.
yeah, instead, that could become a separate project, like council might decide to.
Right, we can do the project anyway.
So I think there's no specific action on this one here. I think to me, those are the two. The two specific items. Anything else that we should do? Voting on?
The only other thing I would consider is the fact that some of these big projects. Some of these big projects are well funded outside, not from the community, but from outside the community. How do we account for that? Because if it's a $3 million project, it gets dinged. But at the same time, you might get 2.5 million from Measure B funds.
But your operational keyword is you might get, and I think that's what, we don't know. We have no idea at this point.
But so if we're going to then that criteria should be removed because we don't
So-
know.
I think the reality is if nobody else steps in and we want to do it, we foot the bill as Cupertino.
But historically speaking, I think been pretty good money behind a lot of these projects.
So I think, my take on that is, yes, budget is a conservation, money is not infinite spigot. But if there is, someone comes along and says, hey, I'll fund this project, it's bottom in the list. I'll pay the whole bill, all of a sudden it becomes a $0 project for us.
Great.
It moves up, right? So I think, those things can come to the council and then they could come to the by commission, get addressed.
Agreed. All right, anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering, we at least, I know that we didn't have a consensus on making there as a concrete proposal, but we want to at least make it as a recommendation so city council can have a look at it.
The clustering?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable request. Again, I wouldn't make it as part of the plan for the reasons we talked about.
yeah.
But I think it's a
In addition, it would be a
recommendation.
recommendation.
In addition, as part of a future enhancement or improvement, we recommend the projects will be clustered and clustered really don't know. I think this is almost an annual project. I mean, this is probably coming back to us. As a commissioner.
And by the way, it's something that it's an exercise that's been done already because the premise of the plan was to show us to remember the heat map with that Stevens Creek Boulevard and all this area was the key kind of corridor to prioritize. And that kind of disappeared. So yeah, it would be good to see it again in terms of, okay, this is what the premise is and this is the plan.
We consider an annual review of project clustering. So. Consider annual review of projects listed in the ATP. It's available, yeah.
I don't really,
Well,
like, I don't wanna.
I get
do an
you.
annual.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. Look, clustering projects, post projects, I wanna refer specifically to those projects here, that are in the ATP projects or something like that. Yeah, great, okay. I think we have a motion, oh, actually, we don't have a motion. Do we have a motion on this? If not, then I'll move to it. And then we need a second,
Yeah, I second.
okay? Motion with a second, let's do a vote, David, please.
Okay, for the motion on the screen, how do you vote? Chair Eschelbeck,
Yes.
Vice Chair Matipatla?
Yes.
Commissioner Ganga,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy? Commissioner Wolf? Motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much. So that closes the item number. Item number 3, and this is probably gonna be a fairly quick, the next one, I would assume. So let's,
As quick as we
let's do item number 3 as well. Which is about the Torrey Avenue Town Center Lane pedestrian crossing project, which is a project we've discussed before its commission. And I'm asking, Prashant to walk us through it.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'll be presenting the item number 3, the Torrey Avenue Town Center Lane pedestrian crossing. This item was previously presented to the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission on October 15th, 2025. Following that meeting, staff completed a detailed field review and collected data collection. The data collection included pedestrian counts, bicycle counts, vehicular counts, collision analysis for 5 years, and also speed counts. Staff has also incorporated initial feedback which we received from Commission in the development of the proposed improvements. This slide just presents the overview of the study area, the Torrey Avenue corridor. Torrey Avenue corridor is a local, low volume local roadway which primarily serves the residential users, commercial users, and the library, the access to the town center lane, and it experienced decent pedestrian activity regarding the library use, town center lane use, and adjacent intersections for the Pacifica Drive and the Rodriguez. This slide shows the location of the existing traffic counts which were conducted on Torrey Avenue. We did 7-day tube counts to capture volume and speed at these 2 locations, this one and this one, where the car symbol is shown. And we did video counts to capture the pedestrian and bike data at 4 locations. These are the 4 locations. And the tube counts were done in the week of November 17, and the pedestrian bicycle counts were done on Tuesday, November 18th, Wednesday, November 19th, and Saturday, November 22nd. This slide summarizes the existing traffic counts on Torrey Avenue. Based upon the data, there were about 1,200 cars traveling in the northbound direction on Torrey Avenue, and the observed 85th percentile speed was 23 miles per hour. And in the southbound direction, there were about 1,400 vehicles, and the percentile speed was 22 miles per hour. And both these counts are the average of the 7-day counts. Now, regarding the pedestrian data, the pedestrian data was moderate. There were about 534 pedestrians crossing the library driveway in the 16-hour span, that is from morning 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And there were about, at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane, there were about 320 vehicles crossing here, and pedestrians crossing here, and 258 pedestrians crossing on the north leg of the intersection. And between library driveway and Town Center Lane, there were about 200 people crossing Torrey Avenue, which is basically the jaywalkers. And all these counts are for 16-hour counts, and they're the average of the 3-day counts. And regarding the bicycle data, there were only 24 bicyclists passing through this intersection in the 16-hour span, and only 16 vehicles passing through this intersection in the 16-hour span. This slide shows the speed distribution on Torrey Avenue. On this chart, on the x-axis, it shows the speed range of the speed in miles per hour. On y-axis, it shows the total number of vehicles recorded at a certain speed range during the count period. So this chart is for the speed distribution on Torrey Avenue, north of Pacifica Drive. And you can clearly see the majority of the vehicles were traveling in the speed range of 25 miles per hour in both northbound and southbound direction on Torrey Avenue, north of Pacifica Drive. And very few vehicles were traveling within the speed range of 25 to 30 miles per hour, and very few between 30 to 40 miles per hour. And this speed chart is for counts on Torrey Avenue, north of town center lane. Based upon this chart, you can see majority of the vehicles were traveling in the speed range of 10 to 25 miles per hour, and very few between 25 to 30, and very few between 30 to 40. And the same data is presented in the tabular format here below. And you can clearly see there were about 80 vehicles in the northbound direction and 40 vehicles in the southbound direction, traveling between 25 to 30 miles per hour on Torrey Avenue, north of Pacifica Drive. And very few, like 4 vehicles were above 30, and 2 vehicles were above 30 on Torrey Avenue, north of Pacifica Drive. And similarly, for the Torrey Avenue, north of Town Center Land, there were 49 vehicles in the northbound and 67 vehicles in the southbound within the speed range of 25 to 30, and very minimal between 30 and 40. So speeding, based upon the data which we collected, there was not much speeding observed on Torrey Avenue.
But is something wrong with people going south? Where they seem to be in a rush.
Southbound, I think after the Torrey Avenue, they go towards the Pacifica Drive. So I think it's like a more like a flat, like a straight row, straight stretch, and not much. That's what I feel.
Should you also look at the intersection, any study on the intersection of Torrey and Pacifica?
We only collected the pedestrian counts. We did only ADT counts. We didn't do any turning movement counts at that. And based upon this, as we said, in the northbound direction, there are only 1200. So there it's, and this is also 24 hours data. So even in the peak hour, it would be very less based upon the ADT.
But what's the actual official speed limit on that? The official
25 miles per hour.
25.
The existing speed limit on Torrey Avenue is 25 miles per hour.
Right, so your average is, 22, right?
Yes, the 85% speed is.
Yeah. I think, we should focus on, people that are above 25, right? Like, so how many people are above 25 out of that, what percentage of cars?
20, an 85th percentile of 22 is very slow for a 45 mile an hour street. Then generally you get 27, 28 miles.
Like the guys on the 30 and 40 range, their license should be taken away.
And that's just narrowly.
We have proposed some improvement plan there.
Yeah.
So this slide shows the recorded collision between year 2020 and 2025 on the Torrey Avenue intersections within the study area, which are the Torrey Avenue and Pacifica Drive, Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane, Torrey Avenue and Rodriguez Avenue. So at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Pacifica Drive, there were only 3 total collisions in last 5 years, out of which 2 were property damage only and 1 was injury collision. And at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane, there were only 3 total collisions in the last 5 years, which all of them were property damage only. And for the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Rodriguez, there were total 5 intersections, out of which 4 were property damage and 1 was injury collision. Regarding the proposed improvements, this slide shows the proposed improvements at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Rodriguez. So staff is proposing to refresh the existing pavement striping and traffic legends at the Torrey Avenue and Rodriguez intersection, because from the picture you can clearly see most of the striping and the traffic legends are a little bit faded and there are cracks in the pavement. So by refreshing the pavement striping and traffic legend, it will improve the clarity. It will enhance the intersection visibility, especially during the low light conditions. And also, staff proposes to install the red signpost reflectors at the stop sign post for the intersection of Rodriguez Avenue, Torrey Avenue, and also for the Library Drive and Torrey Avenue and Pacifica Drive and Torrey Avenue. So from the picture here, you can clearly see if we install a red signpost reflectors, it will significantly improve the visibility of the stop sign, especially during the night time. So it will enhance the visibility of the stop signs.
Have any of these in Cupertino currently?
They have a couple of intersections, yeah. Yeah, I am Blaney, I remember Blaney and Stelling. On that corridor, we have a couple of places there, we have this kind of treatment. Yeah. And this slide shows the proposed improvements at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane. Staff is proposing to install plastic bollards, the reflective plastic bollards in front of the library book drop-off to physically restrict U-turn movements, which is a problem there. And see, if you install a bollard here at this location, so people who want to make a U-turn, it will be a very tough for them to make a U-turn. And staff is also proposing to install a reflective plastic bollard at the northwest corner of Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane to support a smoother turn and pedestrian refuge. It will create a pedestrian refuge space also. So if we install a plastic bollard at this location, it will accommodate a smoother turn for the vehicle turn. One who wants to take a right turn from Torrey Avenue onto Town Center Lane. And also this will create a pedestrian refuge space.
Yeah.
So it will enhance the pedestrian safety and also turning conflicts will be reduced.
So you remove the parking spots next to the box to the lever return.
Keep watching. Keep watching.
Maybe if you're missing, then we can add as an improvement, so no worries. And also, at the same intersection, we also want to install a reflective plastic bollards at the southwest corner also. That will also, that will make this, that will accommodate smooth right turn from Town Center Lane onto the Torrey Avenue. And it will also create a pedestrian refuge space here. And also, staff is proposing to extend the red curve at the southeast corner of Torrey Avenue and Town Center Lane to improve the visibility of pedestrian crossing Torrey Avenue. So in this picture, you can clearly see there is an existing red curve at this location, which is approximately about 12 feet. So we want to extend more 24 feet, which will result in losing this parking spot, but it will enhance the pedestrian visibility at this corner, especially for the southbound traffic.
Can you stay on this for a second? To me, of all the improvements, this is the most important one, and I'll tell you why. I've seen a lot of kids skating and and rollerblading and come full speed down this. And there is a car parked here. If it's an SUV, car coming in this direction has no visibility, that kid coming out. I've seen that many, many times. Right? My heart, kind of stops, when I see that, right? Like, because this is just a accident waiting to happen, right? Because library is full of kids and they just come rollerblading and skateboarding and all that, and they do that. So this is the right. I'm happy we are doing this, right? So I'll go one step further, and if there is a pedestrian stripe here and there on that side, I would say elevate, like almost like a speed bump. The elevated pedestrian crossing, so that way nobody is speeding through. All those people that we saw 30, 40 mile speed, that won't happen. You elevate these two, right? I was thinking, either that or cut off the through traffic, both ends, because we saw a lot of people, jaywalking anyway, right? So this is becoming like a walking corridor. So just cut off both ends so that no through traffic at all. That's a radical solution. Just a thought.
Thank you. But this slide just shows the same improvements which we just discussed on a plan view. Installing a plastic bollards at this location will restrict the U-turn at this location, and also by installing a plastic bollards at this location will accommodate a smoother right turn from Torrey Avenue to the Town Center Lane, and also it will create a pedestrian refuge space. And also same thing happening at this corner, and also by installing the red curb at this location will improve the pedestrian visibility at this location.
Is there any striping you can do as well on those pedestrian islands?
The striping and
Even more clear, because I think that's a big part of the problem as well, is that currently open zone, and I think the bollards are great. But is there a way to also use additional paint or striping forward to mark those islands and as refuge islands for pedestrians?
Generally the surface here is kind of little bit of a different brick surface.
The brick, yes.
Yeah, I know how much the thermo.
Yeah, the striping, there's a couple things. One, the striping wouldn't really stick. And the pedestrian activity is a little bit, there's no, especially on the west side, it's a little diffused in terms of where the pedestrians are coming from. So it's not like they're all channeled to one location and across. And so it's providing the crosswalk is challenging for those two aspects.
I
So
didn't actually mean a crosswalk, I just meant, go back to the previous slide here. I meant to mark those areas specifically, those two areas, those are the traffic buttons. Mark them somehow so the pedestrians know this is a safe place to be.
to stripe, yeah.
The area within the ball, so this is essentially your area.
That's
safe,
holding space.
you're safe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we can see
I
what,
think it's put on something
What
on
can
the
be.
floor to make this explicit.
Yeah.
So is there a part, of the last time we discussed about removing that drop off? Library book drop off?
How much it's getting used?
yeah, that I don't have that information. It might be challenging to remove it.
But I just,
Just put it in
Yeah.
5 years ago.
so if there's a way we can elevate this and this, making it like a speed bump.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't recommend that at this time,
And.
just because, there really isn't a speeding problem. And there are other streets, honestly, where there's greater speeding that, because people are really, 22 miles an hour, and that's pretty.
No, that's the average, but there are,
Well, that's 85th percentile.
Yeah.
So 65% of people are going under 20, which is, again, that's really slow for any street.
I think a big part of the problem is you don't quite know where the road traffic starts and where the pedestrian safe areas. And I think those bollards will help make this a little bit more explicit.
We kind of the, on this, we have, you see this, the one where I'm pointing, we have kind of the in-street signs. It says that yield to the pedestrians, which kind of helps to slow down the traffic at this intersection, and they're kind of very helpful. They really slow down.
Yeah.
Can you also have like, what do you call it, as like this speed
meter,
meter,
the thing.
Well, again, so let's look at the data. There's no speeding problem.
okay.
But no, I saw that there's some numbers about 30, 40.
Yeah.
Very
Right.
Those are one of you guys know that's cost our, right?
Every street.
We'll try to answer in the next slide, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
About lighting and.
This is what I wanted to say regarding.
Okay,
speeding.
yeah,
So we want to deploy a speed trailer, which will be this will be a temporary one on Tor Avenue for 1 or 2 weeks, just displaying how much fast they are going. And after that, maybe we can coordinate with the sheriff office to request targeting speed enforcement. So who are now speeding, they have to pay for it. Like we can request. We always request near the school areas. So there will be a motorcycle sheriff.
by the way, this helps because not the temporary one, I'm talking about the permanent one, because in this day and age, with the electric cars and all that, you don't even realize now how fast you're going until you see that thing flashing on your face. You're like, oh, damn it, I need to slow down.
So this is one of the improvement to tackle the speed for that low people who are speeding there. And this slide shows the proposed improvement at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Pacifica Drive. Staff is proposing to install a rapid rectangular flashing beacon at the intersection of Torrey Avenue and Pacifica Drive, crossing the Pacifica Drive.
When they press the button, that flashes, right? So that whole thing flashes are just those two small lights.
If you see the whole, just two small lines.
The yellow.
The two small lines.
I would like, this whole thing to flash.
We can look at that.
Okay.
Because we have this, where I live, and that's helpful, but it could be a lot more helpful if this whole thing flash.
Thank you, Moni, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, same thing on Blaney,
Yeah.
where the road network
Throughout the
passes.
whole, I think throughout the whole city, that's,
Yeah.
It will be
future version should be improved, in a sense, yeah.
They can also have the lights across on the pedestrian crossing. Is it too much
On the floor.
on the floor,
On the ground.
around the road?
I think,
Yeah, we don't do those anymore.
Not the-
This whole thing flashes, catches their eye. It's bold on your face, and they're like, I gotta stop, right? This small thing gets unnoticed sometimes.
It's a good idea.
The in-pavement lights are very expensive and they're
Yeah.
unreliable.
Okay.
Do we look at lighting at night?
Yes. The staff also proposes to evaluate the feasibility of installing a street light at the northeast corner of Torre Avenue and Town Center. So we'll be evaluating the feasibility of installing a street light at this location, which will increase the nighttime visibility at this intersection. But it's still, we have to look into it and see the funds available and all those things to make a final call.
But my next suggestion, I would rather have this light here on this side, because on this side you have the trees and it's much more, it's darker on this side. And it's hard to see people. Here, it's pretty open and you don't have any trees hiding, like creating shade, whereas on this side, you can see them here. You have the trees and stuff, so I'd rather have it here.
I think we have one within the.
Is it already?
Yeah, there's already one. Maybe in this one it will show. See, this is. I think this is a street light.
Yeah, that's a street light.
It's a street light. The one, the sign which is there, it is already a street light.
It needs to be brighter. I don't know. Look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
These are good improvements. This is what I mean by, with small investments, we can make a huge difference.
Yeah, this kind of, most of the improvements are quick build and cost effective and easy to implement. So this will enhance the pedestrian safety, reduce the turning conflicts and increase the driver awareness. So this is all.
It changes the behavior of people. The people that drive, they see this, they're like, "No, okay, I need to stop. I need to slow down." Right?
Yeah, so is there any proposal for the others behind the library that is on there's a pedestrian walkway where the
Which one?
people exit and enter the library? Yeah, here, yeah.
Mostly we will be installing that red reflector on the stop sign. There is a stop sign at this location, especially this location.
Uh-huh.
So we'll be installing that red reflector. I'll show you on the.
On the post.
Yeah, on the post, yeah. So we'll be installing this kind of red reflector on the sign post. And even we'll do it on for the Pacifica Drive and Torrey Avenue also at that intersection.
Because people do left turn or who are going southbound into the library and where they don't necessarily see the people crossing. And similarly on the other direction as well, where they are making a right turn and they don't see the people crossing, especially in the night time. The visibility is poor and people don't necessarily wear bright clothes.
Yeah, there are enough red curb markings around the library drive, so the kind of visibility looks better, lot better compared to the other locations. So we didn't do anything much.
Okay, there are enough visibility of
Yeah.
light, street lights, okay.
So we had already used time to ask for clarifying questions. Wanted to just quickly check in if there's any public comments on this topic as well.
We have no speakers, Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. Any further discussion from the commission or any
Is there
feedback?
any vote on this?
So,
I
yeah,
don't believe so. It
do you
doesn't
want to
look
make any specific, because we had multiple suggestions, right? So.
If you want to make a motion to, I don't know, approve the staff.
Approve this,
improvements.
yeah.
Yeah, with additional improvement that we suggested, right?
Yeah.
Right, so I think it's good to have the document.
Maybe just let's make a motion on it. Formally documented as well. I think that's a good idea. So I move to approve to the proposed improvements to the Torrey Avenue Town Center Lane pedestrian crossing. That's just a few of the subject.
With following recommendations.
With the following additions, with the following recommendations. The one I proposed was the additional marking on ground floor marking within the bollards. Within the bollards on the, I think this is the west side, I guess.
In the pedestrian refuge lane.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Additional floor striping on the pedestrian.
Pedestrian pole here,
Yeah.
huge.
Any other recommendations that we should add explicitly on here?
The flashing, we want that to be a full.
Yeah. The RFS, I think that's what. RFB, the RFB, should be lighting the full sign rather than just a small.
You,
Is there a terminology for that?
yeah,
around the.
illuminated pedestrian crossing sign. Consider illuminated pedestrian crossing signs to supplement our RFPs. Illuminated pedestrian. I say consider because they're costs, all these, so I just have to make sure budgets allow.
We're not asking for a race table, so.
Yeah. Well, you were, but.
Say that, I like the idea.
Yeah.
Doesn't solve a problem.
Yeah.
Then
Anything else?
Yeah, Commissioner Marcy, did you have a preference for the location of that light?
The light.
No, I just
that's what
checked on,
happens. Yeah.
so on Apple Maps and there is already a pole there. It's just, it's not the same pole, like the same picture you had. So
Oh, well, yeah, the picture's just diagram.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a full street light,
like the one that exists already.
right? And we'll make sure the other one is lighting properly. If there's a dark spot or whatever, we'll address
So
it.
again, I think, yeah, to Pastor's point, I think removing the car in front of the crossing is gonna help
Okay, yeah.
way more than changing the lines here.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, let's do a vote.
Okay, for the motion on the screen, Chair Schlebeck, how do you vote? Chair, Vice Chair Matipatla,
Yes.
Commissioner Ganga,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Wolf. Yes. Motion passes unanimous. Good job.
Moving on to our next item, number 4, is our staff update and commission activity report. Do we have anything to report?
I don't, nothing for me tonight.
From commissioners?
VTA, VPAC had nothing concerning opportunities.
Okay. That's it. We are on the future agenda setting, looking at the clock. We can either do it tonight or we can postpone this tonight for next time. I mean, that's probably not
We've
much.
got a pretty full list.
Yeah. So I think we to make a decision to, I need a motion and a second for that to postpone this item to next time. I move to approve that we move this one to next agenda item, to next meeting.
I can second.
Yeah. So we will vote on that.
The future item.
The future agenda items, yeah, that we cover this on the next meeting. Which is what we covered anyway.
We'll cover it anyway.
We'll cover it in more.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need a motion.
If you don't need a motion, that's even better. Okay, we're
I think
good.
we're good.
Then let's keep that formality. So that really is giving me to getting me to our next point. Our next meeting is March 18th. We'll be here in Finland Center as well. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all the members of staff for supporting us tonight. Great job as always. And I want to adjourn this meeting and
Thank you.
all right.